Fires back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes.
He's going for it. Yes! Oh, my God! What a goal! And that will do it! One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3-2.
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. And yeah, I think this is the first time this season that I've not done a review episode. And I figured you guys probably didn't want to hear my thoughts from last weekend's 0-0 game in Atlanta. I'm sure you guys did not want to hear my thoughts on my trip in Atlanta. The only thing I'll say about that trip is that's definitely a city that you guys should check out next season when the Union are away in Atlanta. Always a great time being in Atlanta. And that's all I'll say for my trip in Atlanta. But joining me now on the podcast is the only goalkeeping coach to have coached both the women's and men's U.S. national team. He has coached in 3 World Cups and was also a part of the Olympics team, bringing home 2 gold medals. He has also had coaching stints with Southern Connecticut University, MetroStars, Syracuse University, Union 2, and now with the Union as the first team goalkeeping coach, and he is the director of goalkeeping as well, Mr. Phil Wheddon. Phil, thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing today?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Now that I'm talking to you, get done the workday and look forward to this. So this should be a good conversation, especially after that performance Andre Blake and you guys had down in Atlanta this past weekend.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you go to those environments, it takes something special to come away with points. Regardless of where a team sits in the MLS, every game is a difficult game, especially on the road. So luckily for us, we had some outstanding performances from Andre and from many other players. Our back four were fantastic, as they have been all year.
Absolutely, and I think Jim said after the game, too, he said before the game, Atlanta fans were coming up to him saying, hey, take it easy on us. So I know that hasn't been the case the last couple of years in Atlanta, where Atlanta's been this super team, and now they're probably going to miss the playoffs, and they're saying, hey, take it easy on us.
Yeah, but again, as I said, with the quality that a lot of these teams have on the field, especially Atlanta, you just never know what's going to happen. And as I said, it was a special performance by a number of players that managed to keep it scoreless in our end. But obviously, we would have preferred 1 or 2 to go in the back of their net. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case.
For sure, Mikal hitting the post there. But like I said, I'm really excited to get the chance to speak with you today and give Union fans the opportunity to hear from you, as many Union fans might not know who you are, don't know what you do with Union. So hopefully after they're done listening to this podcast, hopefully that clears things up for them. But I had the opportunity in May, I believe it was, to talk with Frank Leist about set pieces. I talk to Jim every week in his press conferences, and now that leaves you and Ryan Richter as the last 2 on the technical staff that I haven't spoken with. So Union...
So I'm not last. I'm not last?
Yeah, Ryan's last.
Oh, fantastic. All right, as long as I'm not last.
Come on, Ryan. But like I said, for Union fans that don't know much about you, how your coaching career got started, can you share just how you wound it up as a goalkeeping coach?
Yeah, so like most people, well, first of all, I mean, I'm originally from England. And like most kids in England, you want to follow the dream and play the game. I was an average goalkeeper at best, trying to make it in some of the lower leagues. And at 20, I came over here on a holiday, actually, on a working holiday to do soccer camps when I was 20 years old. And I guess I'm still on holiday, I don't know. But I ended up actually getting diagnosed with a condition in my hands, a tendon disease. Which is common in Northern Europeans, but much older than I was when I got it. So I had my first surgery at 26 on one of my fingers, and I had a surgery every 2 years for about 8 years. So that sort of ended the whole idea of any playing. But I'd always had a passion for coaching. I'd done a lot of soccer camps. I'd coached in England. I had a qualification in coaching. I'd done all the coaching badges in England at the time. And it's always been a passion. And, fortunately enough for me, there was a pathway that I can't explain. You can't plan it. Nothing was ever planned as far as career goes. But I was very fortunate in the steps that I was able to take.
You've had the pleasure of working with some of the best goalkeepers in U.S. history with Tim Howard, Hope Solo, Kasey Keller, and Brianna Scurry. And, as a coach, coaching these players at such a young age, are you able to tell that they're talented right away? Or is it just working with them over time where you start to notice, hey, these might be really special players?
By the time I was working with Kasey Keller, so I was actually privileged enough to work with Tim Howard on 2 occasions, or two blocks of time. The first time was with the MetroStars in the MLS in 2000. He was actually the number 2 goalkeeper at the time, but possessed just unbelievable athletic qualities. I played the game very differently, as most goalkeepers do. They all play the game differently, and I was fortunate to work with him in a very successful season there, and then. Again, during the whole World Cup cycle in 2005, 2006 with himself and Kasey Keller. And again, at the time, Kasey Keller was in the later stages of his career. So he was, I think I was 2 years older than him at the time. So it was an interesting situation, but one that as a coach, you have to adapt. You're going to work with players, especially the up and coming coaches. You're going to work with players that are older than you. You're going to work with players that are younger than you, and you've got to, there's boundaries and lines that you try not to cross. But it's a learning experience for both sides. So that was a very, very special time for me working with the whole crop of goalkeepers. From in the MLS at the time, there was Kevin Hartman and Joe Cannon and John Bush and a slew of others that I got to work with. So I was very, very fortunate to be on Bruce Arena's staff through that time. On the women's side, again, I was blessed to be able to work with Brianna Scurry and Hope and Alyssa Nair and a lot of other goalkeepers, even up through the youth ranks. For example, Casey Murphy, who now is in the full national team. I worked with her through the U20s and a number of other goalkeepers that were young at the time, or still are young, actually. But you notice something different about all these goalkeepers, and that they have to have a special quality. And it may be athleticism, it may be their ability to make good decisions, it may be their shot-stopping ability, it might be their ability to distribute the ball and play the space behind the back 4 or back 3, whatever the system is. But each of these goalkeepers, and it goes for all of the goalkeepers that are playing at the higher levels, they all have some defining traits.
Yeah, like you said, you're from England, and I know this gets brought up a lot over the years where the U.S. are always good at producing good goalkeepers. So why do you think personally the U.S. have always had good goalkeeping?
Honestly, I think this is something that's been talked about quite a lot. And I don't want to cause any controversy here because I would say that it's actually declined a little bit recently. But in a lot of the sports that the American general public grow up playing are hand-eye coordination sports. Baseball, basketball, football, hand-eye coordination, which also involves a lot of footwork and quick movements. So I think that is inherent in the society in sports, and that once that's finely tuned a little bit as far as the soccer or football side of it goes, the ability to produce technically very, very good goalkeepers is relatively easy, I would say, in comparison to people that are perhaps less athletic, playing less sports with their hands, more with, I would say, with rackets growing up playing cricket or rugby, it's different. So, I think in the 2000s, there was an abundance of American goalkeepers. So I think that the culture in American sports has directly influenced that.
Absolutely. And just staying with the U.S. goalkeepers, one big topic among pundits and fans alike is who should start in net for the U.S. at the World Cup in Qatar. You've seen Matt Turner and Zach Steffen play here when they were in MLS. Sean Johnson's been a name mentioned as one of the potential three going to Qatar. You have Ethan Horvath's on loan with Luton Town in England. So Greg Berhalter has a choice of four really solid goalkeepers. You don't have to answer this if you don't want to. Like you said, it could be controversial. But if Greg Berhalter were to call you up and ask your opinion on any of those four goalkeepers, who do you think has the edge over everyone else?
The World Cup is a very difficult situation because typically you have an established number one that's going to play. You know who that number one is. And I believe that's kind of been the case throughout time. Maybe the Kasey Keller, Brad Friedel one was a little bit more interesting in 2002, but now there isn't. I don't think there's an established number one. So now it comes down to a matter of opinion, and I think that you're probably going to go with the one who's playing most regularly and is good at the time. So I know that's kind of a vague answer and not throwing a name out there, but if for example, Matt Turner had a massive body of work last year and was phenomenal for his club and for the country. So I would say that for me he'd be a front runner. Zach has had some injuries. He went from Man City to Middlesbrough. He's not playing, or there's a lot of push from Middlesbrough fans to play the young boy over him now. So again, it's a difficult situation. My mind still leads towards the qualities of Matt Turner.
There we go. Well, I appreciate you for answering that, Phil. But let's go ahead and switch gears to you joining the Philadelphia Union. So you joined the Union organization in 2019, I believe, working with the then Bethlehem Steel, working as a goalkeeping coach with them. And then in 2020, that's when you started your role with the first team, I believe. So how did everything come about you joining the Union's organization?
It was actually quite strange. I took a job in college during a difficult time in my life, personally, and that was coming to an end in December of 2018. At that time, there was also a change in goalkeeper coach at the Union. So naturally, I reached out to Ernst because he had just taken over. And one of my references was a coach from Germany, Michael Rechner from TSG Hoffenheim, who I know quite well. And a lot of the references that he called or touched base with, said that I should be considered. So the story goes actually, and I'll tell you this. I'm sure Ernst won't mind. And if he does, obviously you won't see me again.
Let's hope not.
So I show up at a hotel for the interview, and when I walk into the lobby of the hotel, I see Oka there, Oka Nikolov, and I'm like, oh, this is strange. Maybe he's interviewing him too. Well, no, he had actually already given Oka the job. Oka was going to be the goalkeeper coach, but Ernst wanted me, that there was a plan in place where Oka wanted to transition more into being an assistant. So there was an opportunity with the second team that Ernst and Oka created the opportunity for me with the second team to keep me in the system. And I was lucky enough to work with Tomas Romero. Obviously, Matt Fries was around there as well, and a lot of other goalkeepers. And they were obviously happy with what I was doing. And, I was also involved in first team sessions. And then, and then the plan was, as I said, for Oka to become the assistant or one of the assistants, and for me to move up in the ranks. And I'm very grateful to Ernst for the opportunity to work with the Union. It's a unbelievable coaching staff, unbelievable organization with just fantastic fans. So from a coaching point of view, I couldn't ask for anything more.
For sure. And the one thing that always impresses me about the coaching staff is just how none of you guys take credit. Jim Curtin's always giving praise to you guys, the coaching staff. Frank Leist, when I had him on, he was giving credit to Jim and the players. When I think I added you on social media, whatever, for the credit of Andre Blake, you said now all the credit goes to Andre Blake. So, I mean, none of you guys take the credit. You always look to give the credit to other players. And you guys have all done a tremendous job just building the team over me mentality. And I think that's why we've seen you guys be successful the last 3 seasons. And I know a big part of it, Jim Curtin talks about the use of analytics. I'm just curious, your takes on analytics with goalkeepers. Do you like them, or do you just go off of form, what they look like in game, or do you base your goalkeepers off of analytics a lot?
Well, firstly, I want to say that Jim creates an environment that allows people to flourish, both coaches and players. So, that's why the credit goes to Jim, because he creates it. He creates the environment. As far as analytics go, data and analytics, it's good to have. Personally, I take a lot of stats during the game, so that's live. In training, I do monitor the goalkeeper's training load and all that kind of thing. So I know I know the impact of every session on their bodies, and when to ease off a little bit, or when to tell them to ease off a little bit. But that's not a defining thing for who's going to play. You can't beat the eye test. I can tell you that goalkeeper X is making more saves in training, but and Jim or someone else can turn around and say, yes, but goalkeeper Y is more commanding. I'm just more comfortable with that goalkeeper, and and they make the ultimate decision. So it's nice to have the data. It's fun to look at the data, especially when you're doing well. It's always fun to look at data and analytics. But when you're not doing so well, it's not so much fun. But I don't think you can base who's going to play off of that.
For sure. It's one of my big key attributes to this podcast is just always looking at the data, always looking at analytics. And some people might get bored of me bringing up all these stats, but like you said, when you're playing good, it's like you want to look at the most obscure stats and mention them. And you guys have broken so many records this season, and so it's always fun just to talk about them and be like, wow, like this record's been around for 20 plus years, and the Union just broke that. And I'm sure with 2 games remaining, there will be some more records that you guys don't say it, because you'll jinx us. We could get blown out 10-0 in both games now. Thanks. If that happens, everyone's going to come after you now. They probably will. So we'll make sure we edit that part out.
All right, good. Yeah.
But for people unaware of your coaching style with Union, 3 things that you teach is to defend the space, the area, and the goal, I believe. For people that are listening, they might not know what that means. What exactly does that mean, defending the space, area, and the goal?
So we base our goalkeeping profile off of in possession and out of possession. So the out of possession actions are the number one role of the goalkeeper is to defend the goal. To stop the ball from going into the goal. If you can't do that, you're not going to be in the conversation at all. The second one is to defend the area, defend the goal area. So when you're talking about defending the goal, that is saving shots, etc. Sort of within the 6-yard box, if you like. Defending the area is a lot more decision making. So that's through balls, that's crosses and service. So that's defending the goal area, and then defending the space is really, really important for the Union goalkeepers because of the style of play. If you're close enough to the field or you are around it at all, you'll hear the word rest defense quite a lot. And rest defense is when our players step up high and almost when we have possession, they step up to the next opponent. So you'll see almost 1v1 at the back sometimes, or 2v2. And because of that, the goalkeeper has to be in a position where they can now cover the space in behind the defenders. So that sometimes that can be from the halfway line all the way into your half. Sometimes that can be 20 yards, sometimes it can be 30 yards. So defending the space is one of the key things for us in our Union goalkeeping philosophy.
I appreciate that explanation. And, you being a goalkeeper coach, former goalkeeper, I don't know if you're a myth or not, but I think just personally, just sitting up in the press box and getting a view of the whole field, there's been many times this season where I've watched the opposition's goalkeepers and, they've got their positioning all wrong, whether it's they leave too much at their near post, they're covering the wrong angles of the goal, they're too far off the line, but that doesn't seem to be the case for you guys in goal with Andre Blake, or even if it's Matt Freese with Union too. Matt Freese just had a fantastic performance against New England this past weekend too. And it's been a good week for goalkeepers for the Philadelphia Union this weekend in Atlanta and in New England.
Yeah, Matt and Joe are in a really difficult situation. I personally think that we have the best goalkeeping group in the league. They are unbelievable to work with on a daily basis, and that they all three of them can play in any club in MLS. All three of them. Unfortunately, for two of them, they're behind Andre Blake, who we can talk more about him later. But Matt was. It's important for Matt to get games as a young goalkeeper, so he's played a ton of games this year. And yes, he was absolutely phenomenal this weekend for our second team in clinching the playoffs. It's because of him that they've made it to the playoffs. So that's massive for him. I'm really thrilled for him. He's been fantastic. As far as the positioning goes, I think a lot of it comes down to the way that we train and our training philosophy, which filters through the club. And that's my role, to make sure that it filters through the club. We don't do a lot of, I would say, drills. We don't say, okay, today we're going to work on diving. Today we're going to work on crosses. Or it's more functional and situational. So the ball has arrived here. It's come from here. It's arrived here. What can happen from here? And the goalkeeper has to make the decisions then on what type of save they're going to make. Or are they going to come and try and intercept the ball, or step up high and block the ball, or what action are they going to take? A lot of times we base that on the next opponent. So we're going to play Atlanta. We know that we know that we're going to see long range shots. So in the build up for Atlanta, we saw a lot of long range shots. We saw a lot of close range actions as well, because those, looking at the number of shots that they've had, they're the number one team, I believe, in the league in shots. The number of shots they've had within 12 yards is ridiculous. So, we had to prepare the goalkeeper for that. So our situational, I'd call it situational training. So it's very real. It's as realistic as it can be without having attackers and defenders in there.
For sure. And you brought up a point where, Matt Freese is a young goalkeeper and he needs to get as much playing time as he can. And I said this earlier in the season, I was surprised you guys didn't loan him out to a team in MLS. I thought that plenty of teams in MLS could use him, and Matt would be the first choice goalkeeper on a lot of teams in MLS. And didn't happen. He's getting a lot of playing time with Union too. I think fans too forget that Joe Bendix played a lot of games in MLS with Orlando and Toronto. And we saw last year with the whole COVID situation where Matt Freese had to step up, played big against New York City in the playoffs. And I think that's a credit to you, just having your players ready at any given moment.
I think it's essential for all of your goalkeepers to be ready to play. If you in your training, if you just do repetitious exercises, they're not making decisions. They're not doing, and you can look at Instagram, you can look at some of the stuff that a lot of the other MLS goalkeeper coaches put out there, and it's bounce and dive and roll and spin. And again, it's not right or wrong. It's just different. So, and that's fine. But last year, on the last 2 years, this is my third season. So in the last 2 seasons, we have used all 3 goalkeepers. So it's my job to make sure that all 3 goalkeepers are ready to play. And again, I go back to Jim. We have conversations about who's on the bench and who's playing for the second team, and how important it is to get minutes for each goalkeeper. And the biggest thing about working with someone like Jim is He expects you to do your job, and he trusts you to do it, and he trusts your opinion. So again, credit to him for creating this environment. So all three goalkeepers have played. All three goalkeepers are ready to play, and all three goalkeepers are playing at a very high level. As you said, Freeze has been absolutely fantastic. And now he's young, so he's still going to make decision-making mistakes, and there'll be goals, or there have been goals that he would say he would want back playing for our second team. But he's pushing. He's pushing, and you are absolutely right. He could play on a lot of teams in MLS. And as far as a loan goes, you can only loan the goalkeepers out. Number one, you don't want him in conference. So it has to be West Coast, but then you've got to have another one underneath. So you've got to have, and at the time we didn't. So it was important. And that's why it became so important for Matt to get those second team games.
Absolutely. And it's got to be hard, having three goalkeepers that could start in MLS, just saying, hey, look, I know you want to get game times. You probably could get game times, but I'm sure manager respect that, hey, look, Andre's having a career season, so there's nothing we can do about that. And I do want to get your opinion real quick. We've seen over the years just managers opting for ball-playing goalkeepers instead of shot stoppers, with Ederson and Allison, some of the world's best at playing out of the back. And when you look at goalkeepers, would you prefer them to be better at shot stopping, or with this latest trend of playing out of the back?
Well, that's an easy one as a Union goalkeeper. That's an easy one because we're not building out of the back typically. So the shot stopping for us is massively important. The goalkeeper touches the ball seven more times with their feet than they do with their hands. So, as I said, I keep all the stats of the touches during the game: long pass, short pass, clearance, goal kick, save, collection, interception, whatever, I keep all those stats. So, and in 2021, the overall stats were exactly that. 70 without, and I'm not joking. I'm not. I didn't fudge the results or anything else. It just came out as, I think it was 71% of all actions were in possession. So, and that's just tallying all the stuff from every game together, including Champions League, because we had Champions League last year. So, it's so that the playing out the back, is that important? Yes, it is very important, and that's something that we incorporate in, I would say, almost every day. There's something with the feet, even if it's the goalkeeper serving, because they're always striking the ball. And we build in a lot of exercises where there's sometimes there's two goalkeepers and one's playing possession while the other one is defending the goal. And there's multiple tasks that go on within the same exercise. But the goalkeeper has to be able to play out the back. We prefer not to, as you know, as most Union fans know. But when the opposition drops off, we have to be, and the goalkeeper, when the opposition drops off, obviously we can build. When defenders are under pressure, they have to be able to play back to the goalkeeper. And it's something, and I give Andre an awful lot of credit, because that was one of the knocks that was against him in his earlier years. But he's really, really worked on it. And take to the point where he takes pride in it now. And if he misplays a ball, he's upset about it, and we discuss it afterwards. He said, "Yeah, I know I did this and this, and I should have done this." So it's while both are important, shot stopping and playing out the back, our methodology, we need to be able to hit a longer ball with accuracy.
Yeah, it makes sense, and you're right. I mean, you look at Atlanta this past weekend, Andre Blake, 5, 6 saves, and all of them were phenomenal saves. And the one thing I love about Andre is, he doesn't stand still. His feet are always moving, just ready to move, and his eyes is watching that ball and everything. And he gets himself in such great positioning. And, it's so hard for me to pick which save was his best in Atlanta, because, each of them were truly special. And Atlanta are probably kicking themselves because they feel like they probably deserved all 3 points. But when you have a goalkeeper like Andre Blake, it's hard to score by him. And I wrote down a couple of his numbers where this season he saved 82% of the shots that he's faced. He has 100 saves. His PSXG plus minus is plus 9.3, and his PSXG per 90 is 0.29. You know, he's just having a career year. And I say all the time on this podcast where Andre Blake should be considered for MVP this season. And I know the last goalkeeper to do that was Tony Meola. I know Jim said a couple of weeks ago, Andre should be considered. And then the following week, Daniel scores a hat trick and he's like, oh, Daniel should be considered. But look, you know, me personally, I know you're not saying this, but I'm tired of people voting for the MVP, whoever's in the lead for Golden Boot, because we already have an award for the Golden Boot. You know, whoever scores the most goals is going to win the Golden Boot. It shouldn't mean that they're going to win MVP as well. And when you're looking at the numbers Andre Blake's putting up, he definitely needs to be in that conversation, in my opinion.
There are a lot of players around the league that are incredibly valuable to their team and to the league that aren't necessarily scoring goals. You know, and again, on our team, I would say that there's a number of players that are having career seasons. You know, and obviously I relate a lot to the defense, but you know, Kai has been fantastic. I mean, look what he's done this year. Jacob and Jack have just been incredible. Leon Flack is having a great year. Daniel Gazdag is having a great year, and Andre is having a great year. Now, I don't know whether I agree with you. Whoever scores the most goals doesn't make them the best player in the league. If you look at Zlatan could stand up there and the ball, because he's an incredible finisher, he can just score a bunch of goals. Now, what's he doing for the other 89 minutes? He's walking around and yelling at people and gesticulating at the crowd. So, and now he's a phenomenal player. Don't get me wrong, but is that the most valuable to the team, to the league? Again, there are so many things and so many great players in the league. And as I said, on our team, and I know I'm trying not to be biased, but I see these people every day.
Yeah.
And I see the work they put in, and I see the value that they have. And the unfortunate thing is, quite honestly, they'll end up taking votes away from each other. But yeah, I agree with you. I feel like, you know, Tony Meola at the time was a very, very good goalkeeper. We've had a ton of good goalkeepers in the league over time. And I do feel that Andre is by far the most valuable goalkeeper in the league. Now, does that make him the most valuable player as well? That's a possibility. So yeah, I can't disagree with you.
I appreciate that. Look, the more people we can get talking about Andre Blake being the MVP voting, I think that's good. So whether it be the fan vote, media vote, coaches vote, I mean, I think people need to pay attention to what Andre Blake's doing. I mean, just looking at the stats from Andre Blake's whole career and everything, I mean, it's just breathtaking watching what Andre Blake's doing in the goal for the Union. And hopefully there's people that do have a vote that they go ahead and do the right thing and vote Andre Blake, in my opinion. But you're right. That's the bad thing, I guess, of you guys having a career season where people are going to take away votes from each other. And yeah, Kai Wagner's been phenomenal. Jacob, Jack, part of the reason why Stuart Finley left the club, because, you know, he had the two best center backs in front of him, and Stuart Finley, when he played, great center back. But, you know, there's nothing you can do when you have two players that are playing at an all-star level on your team. But yeah, Andre Blake.
One of the things that you said was, you said that Andre has 100 saves. Who's the next one in the league that has the number of saves that he has?
Oh man, you're putting me on the spot right there.
Come on, pull it out.
Oh man.
Because and the reason why I'm saying this is because people are saying that Andre shouldn't get the recognition because he has an incredible back four in front of him.
Yeah, I agree.
Now he has an incredible back four in front of him, but he's made 100 saves. So, and when you look at the stats and the save percentage of a lot of the other goalkeepers, it's down in the 60s, I believe, 67 and like that. So it does say something about his value to the team if if he's still making 100 saves.
And I looked up the goalkeepers closest to Andre Blake in terms of saves. You have Steve Clark of Houston with 99, Dane St. Clair with 98 of Minnesota, and William Yarbrough of Colorado with 98. And let's look. 2 out of 3 of those teams aren't going to make the playoffs this season. They're not the Union defensively. But you guys have conceded the fewest amount of goals in MLS, and I know Jim talks about you guys wanting to get that record from Sporting Kansas City for conceding the fewest amount of goals in a 34-game season, and I won't mention that, and hopefully it comes true. But one thing I want to bring up about Andre is looking at his penalty saves, and everybody's going to remember that Nashville game. One thing from me, I think it was against Columbus, I want to say, or maybe New England, sometime last year. But I remember watching you on the sidelines, and you're pointing to Andre Blake. I guess you're probably telling him which way the kicker usually goes, and Andre comes up with a big save. And I'm like, wow, Phil Wheddon, you deserve all that credit. I know all the coaches were hugging you and everything, but I guess part of it, too, is just Andre trusting the way that you told him to go, and he comes up with a big save. And all those saves he made against Nashville in the playoffs. And I'm sure, Union fans were probably nervous when that game went to penalties against Nashville. Like, okay, it's a 50-50 that he's going to save this. But Andre just was on fire in the playoffs, reading which way Nashville's takers were going to go. And the only one that he didn't read right was Walker Zimmerman. But fortunately for him, he skies the ball.
Yeah. No, so there's a lot of things that go into this. First of all, thank you for trying to give me the credit, but it's not me. Our analysts, before 2 days before the game, we get a list of penalties, like the list of potential penalty takers. Okay, so they give me the list. I filter it to a point that I send to the goalkeepers, so they have that information which they read. Now, if you play 90 minutes or 120 minutes, whatever it is, you're not going to retain the information necessarily of each penalty kick taker. So I stand up and I give a reminder to the goalkeeper of where the kicker's preferred side is. So that's what you see. That's what the fans see. That's what you see. You see me give them a reminder. They've already had the information. The situation that you're talking about when we played Nashville. So Andre actually made a save against Nashville this year as well. We also talk about penalties because there's a lot of studies on it. And there are some general giveaways and some general rules of thumb that goalkeepers should follow. So, for example, and this is the most simple one out there, a right-footed kicker will typically kick to the goalkeeper's right, and a left-footed kicker to the goalkeeper's left. So now you bring up Nashville last year in the playoffs. We knew where the first one was going. We knew he was going to go to Andre's right, and Andre made a save. Okay, Godoy had never taken a penalty. So, and I give, and all the other things that people don't know is Joe Bendick was over in the crowd to the, if you were behind the goal with the Sons of Ben, it was on the left-hand side. Joe Bendick was over there as well, giving, shouting out reminders. But Godoy, I believe it was Godoy, hit it with his left foot to the goalkeeper's left, and Andre makes the save. And now the pressure is on the kicker. And yeah, Andre, I believe last year had just a ridiculous stat of saving 50% of the penalties or more, which is almost unheard of. So there's a lot of different factors go into it. It comes from our analysts. It's filtered through. There's a line of communication that we have on the field as well. So there's a lot of things that go into it.
And I do have Andre's penalty record pulled up. So in 2016, he went 1 for 1. 2017, 1 for 5. 2018, 0 for 8. 2019, 1 for 4. 2020, 1 for 2. 2021, you're right, he saved more than 50% of his penalties, going 3 for 4. And this season, he's 1 for 4 with a penalty save against the Columbus Crew. But Andre's reading of where the penalty takers are going to go has improved tremendously. And when the penalties happen against Nashville, I felt so confident just by watching how good Andre was in the regular season with saving penalties. And I'm sure Andre would probably say the same thing too, that he was fully confident that he was going to come away and make some saves. And you brought up a good point. I didn't even have this in my notes, and I asked Jim Curtin this before and Frank Leist, and this was just a silly question to ask them. Is a penalty kick a set piece? So what's your opinion on that?
Well, technically, yes. Officially, no, because it doesn't go into set piece stats. But yeah, I mean, it's a dead ball, isn't it? So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said too, and I believe Jim and definitely Frank said the same thing too. So that got Union fans into a big discussion on Twitter when I asked that question. I feel like more than half the people said no, it's not. But you're right, by a technicality, it's a dead ball situation. So I have one more question to you, and hopefully it doesn't jinx anything. But like we mentioned, Jim Curtin's been talking about the 34-game record of 27 goals conceded set by Sporting KC in 2014. And there's another record that you guys could beat, and that's goals against per game, which is at 0.67, and that was set by Real Salt Lake in 2010. And that was a 30-game schedule back in 2010. Now you guys are currently at 0.71 goals conceded per game, and if you guys concede 0 goals in the last 2 games, you also have that record too. So what would it mean for you personally to set the goals against per game record?
My job is to influence the goalkeepers to enhance their performance using any means necessary. So, and if you're ever out at training, you'll see I make them very uncomfortable with some of the things that we do because I challenge them physically, mentally, and so on. For them to have the success and for the team to have the success of conceding less goals than anyone ever has in MLS would be absolutely phenomenal. And again, it comes down to, it comes from the top. It comes, Ernst has set a system in play. Jim is coaching that system, and every player is bought into the system, including the goalkeepers. And from a goalkeeper's point of view, you want that shutout. And as all Union fans know, early in the season we were tying a lot of games, and and those were crushing for the goalkeepers because it's 2-2 or 1-1, and then we invariably you end up with conceding 3 goals in a game, and it's something that is going to happen to most teams across the course of a season. But it would be amazing for our team. And obviously Andre has played every game in the league so far. So for him personally, I think that'd be the icing on the cake to also be known as the goalkeeper that conceded the least amount of goals ever in the history of MLS.
Again, it just goes back to my opinion. I think Andre Blake should really get votes for MVP because what he's doing is historic. And I don't know if Andre will be able to do it again next season. I mean, you would hope just because of the guy that he is. But, I mean, what he's doing is just unprecedented, not only in MLS, but just in the world of soccer. You look in the Premier League, you look in the Bundesliga, goalkeepers aren't having the type of season that Andre Blake's currently have. And I don't care what people say over in Europe and everything, saying, oh, it's MLS, like it's weaker soccer. You still got to make those saves. You're still playing against class players, and Jim Curtin talks about it all the time where, the defending might be getting a little bit worse in the league, but that's just because we're seeing more expensive attackers coming in and you're seeing more goals scored. And to see Andre Blake make the kind of saves that he's doing, I mean, what a season Andre is having. Yeah.
It's the standard in the league of attacking players is getting higher. I mean, you look at LAFC and Atlanta, and Toronto, and the types of players they're bringing in, the money that is being spent on the attacking players. The quality of attacking players is getting higher and higher, which is making it more and more difficult for defenders to stop them, obviously. What's occurring right now? And I would love to say, hey, this is going to be the case every year. If we keep the same players, this will be the case every year. But that's not the way that soccer works. Sometimes the soccer gods smile on you, and sometimes they don't. And as all Union fans know, there's been seasons where the gods have not smiled on us. This year, everyone is clicking on the same page. Everyone is working together for the same reason. And as we talked about, special players are having a special season, and one of those players is Andre. And I'm exceptionally happy for him, and I'm happy for the team, and I'm happy for Jim, because ultimately he deserves credit.
Absolutely. And before I let you go, where can people find you on social media, Phil? Because if you guys aren't following Phil on Instagram, you post awesome goalkeeping clinic videos of what you do with your goalkeepers, whether it be with Union or, like I said, just with clinics all around the world.
Yeah, it's very simple. At Phil Wheddon. That's all it is on Twitter or Instagram. And the reason why I do that, Todd, quite honestly, is to try and provoke thought in goalkeepers. Because, again, not right or wrong, so a lot of the ways that people train goalkeepers is different. But are we actually teaching the game when we're teaching the goalkeepers? And that's possibly why some goalkeepers excel and some goalkeepers don't, is because some are doing maybe repetitious exercises and some are actually doing realistic functional training. So I'm happy to answer any questions at any time from any of the Union fans on goalkeeping. The more interaction we can have with Union fans, the better we are. We love what the fans bring, and we want to support them as well.
For sure. Now we got to get the local media to start talking about you guys more. So, yeah, I know we got writers that are covering you, but let's get more of you guys on the radio stations and talk shows, and then that's how we know that you guys have made it. But look, hey, Andre Blake just won Philly Athlete of the Year, so...
The Wanamaker Award, yeah. I mean, and that's up against Joel Embiid as well. So
Absolutely.
That can't be bad.
No, we cannot. But I appreciate your time, Phil. And again, Union fans, if you guys didn't know who Phil Wheddon was, hopefully you guys have a better understanding now, and make sure you follow him on Twitter and Instagram as well. And speaking of Instagram and Twitter, if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow @FreeKickPod, wherever you guys get your podcast of The Free Kick. And be sure to check out the website, thefreekick.net. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode with Phil Wheddon talking all things Philadelphia Union, talking all things goalkeeping. And yeah, like Phil said, at least he wasn't the last one on the technical staff to get on the podcast. That leaves Ryan Richter as the last person to come on the podcast. And I don't know when I'll have Ryan on the podcast. I don't know if we'll do it sometime here in the next month. I don't know if we'll wait until next season, but for sure, Ryan needs to come on to the podcast and just talk about what he does with the Philadelphia Union, talk about his Bethlehem Steel playing days. And yeah, hopefully you guys are enjoying these episodes with Union's technical staff. I know you guys really haven't heard Jim Curtin one-on-one with me. I know you guys have heard all these clips I played of Jim Curtin from his press conference, but yeah, maybe looking into getting Jim Curtin on the podcast, maybe in the off season or something. But regardless, if you guys are going to the game this weekend to see the Philadelphia Union take on Pachuca, hopefully you guys have a blast. I will be recording the podcast when I'm on vacation. We're going to go live on Twitter Spaces. I guess we can go ahead and talk about that upcoming Charlotte game. If you guys are going down to Charlotte, I would love to have you come onto the podcast, talk about your plans, what you're looking forward to. And yeah, if you guys haven't been on Twitter Spaces before, come on and we'll talk all things Philadelphia Union, how this season's going. Whatever you guys want to talk about, we'll be sure to include it on Twitter Spaces. I'll give you guys an update on Twitter when Twitter Spaces will be. I don't have a set day, like I said, going on vacation, and I got to figure out what night I'm going to be free so I can go live on Twitter Spaces. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.